The arduous drive over hill and over dale. The grueling trek up treacherous cobbled strips. The anxious wait for that key moment when a win presents itself. And the celebration of victory on hallowed ground. It's the Spring Classic, and for cycling-crazed Belgium, the classics begin in only one place. Over the twisting, turning roads of Flanders, a host of native warriors will battle with one eye toward history and one eye toward the season to come. The 57th Omloop Het Volk is next. Since 1945, the Belgian faithful have journeyed to Flanders for the first Spring Classic of the season. Hello and welcome to Ghent, Belgium for the 2002 Omloop Het Volk. Once again, a stellar field has shown, and leading the way is two-time winner Peter van Petegem, who's certainly hungry after a less than stellar campaign with Team Mercury. Joining him on Lotto is Robbie McEwen, fresh off a win at the Australian Road Championships and 4 stage wins at the Tour Down Under. And what Belgian race would be complete without the Flemish Lion, Johan Museeuw? He took the title here in 2000. One name conspicuous in its absence at the start was last year's winner, Michele Bartoli. He has the flu, but is expected back soon. The course this year is much as it's been throughout the 56 previous runnings of the event, with 10 historic climbs, including the Moor, the Valkenburg, and finally the Molenberg, coming 53K from the finish in Lokeren. As they rolled off the start line this morning, spirits were high, despite temperatures in the 40s. And as they charged up the Moor, it was still a fairly tight group, with all the favorites closely marking each other. As they crossed the halfway point, the race began to sort itself out. Glenn de Hollander and Lazio Bedrogi out front, with 7 strong on the chase, and the peloton just the far side of a minute behind. Let's join the race 89K from the finish.
Back to the leaders now as they approach the Eichenberg climb. 89 kilometers to go. This is a long climb. It's about 1.2 kilometers. It reaches a maximum gradient of around about 11%. That's 1 in 9. Sure again to bring the best out of these riders as they come on to yet another section of cobbles. Still de Hollander, a long break specialist, and Bedrogi about a minute clear of the peloton there, holding on to the advantage. Interestingly, it's worth mentioning, of the 56 previous editions of this race, no fewer than 49 of them have been won by a Belgian. Michele Bartoli, one of the few to break the spell, so to speak, 12 months before, the Italian producing a famous burst to add yet another Belgian race to his long list of victories. Even the Belgians had to admire him. Who will they be admiring in this race in a little while? Back to the bunch again, and still the deficit, about a minute and a half. This is real Tour de Flanders country, with its many climbs and stretches of cobbles, and coming so early in the season, it's a race which really sorts out those who've done their winter preparation well. Those who have are here to impress, to set themselves up for races such as Paris-Nice, Milan-San Remo, Paris-Roubaix, and of course the Tour of Flanders itself, that great spring classic which uses many of these same roads. For the not-so-fit, well, this is one of those character-building events, I suppose, where you simply try to hang on and get some more than useful, hard training miles into your legs. Now, from the Belgians' point of view here, apart from adding to that long list of winners, there's another reason for the Belgians to win this particular race. They need a reassuring victory to help wipe away the stigma surrounding their erstwhile hero Frank Vandenbroek, who was the winner of this race here in 1999. Just 2 days before the race, he was sacked by his new team Domo after a police raid on his home found a number of banned substances. Well, these hills finding out these riders, the gaps beginning to appear. We saw a shot at the back of that little chase group. Jeffrey de Meyer was just hanging on for the Vlaanderen team, a third-year pro, still looking for his first victory so far. And he was hanging on to the wheel of a much more experienced rider too. Steve de Jonge up in that chase group, the Rabobank rider from Holland. Almost 20 wins as a professional. De Jonge by far the more experienced of the two, as indeed is the Lampre man Max Sheandry. Here we see the peloton now on that climb. Still the cobbles, still these bone-shaking roads which rough you up, and if you can't take it, then you're out of the back and you're not going to be winning the race. This is definitely a hard man's event. The chase still on behind the two leaders, but the German Stefan Weigold of the second division team Gerolsteiner, who was in that chase group, has found the pace up front just a little bit too much. So there are now just 6 riders between the break and the peloton, that little chase group having stayed clear of the peloton on the last climb. This is Paul van Hoofden. The chase is almost back with the main field. He's made a big effort, the CSC Tiscali rider. Paul van Hoofden putting in a big effort now to try and help the rest of the peloton close things down. Well, the Lotto team clearly in control of things at this stage. They're still aiming to get the new Aussie road race champion Robbie McEwen to the finish as fresh as possible. Just look at those jerseys massing at the front of the main field. Now, this is the 8th of those 10 climbs. This is the Leberg, another short, sharp shock. And Dollander and Bedroghi have now been joined by those 5, but the rest of the field is still well within range. And remember, the race here is still the thick end of 80 kilometres to go, a long, long way yet. There's a list of the riders up front. Max Sheandry, of course, he's a World Cup race winner, won in Leeds back in 1995. Sheandry, who rides under a British licence, although he began his career as an Italian. He was born in Derby in England. And you see a rear shot of the Lampre-Daikin rider Sheandry, and back to the main field on the same climb. And now they get down to less than a minute. Look at the two Belgian teams, Lotto and Domo, the only teams with former winners in the field. They can be seen here prominently at the front as the Italian and the French outfits lie in wait.
So Lotto's on the front and in the break. Definitely watch out for those clad in red. 79 to go. We'll return to Belgium after this. For the Queen of the Classics. That's right, this Sunday, it's the Hell of the North, Paris-Roubaix, live at 8:30 a.m. Right now, let's return to the roads of Flanders and the Omloop Het Volk.
This is the Berendries, a maximum gradient here of about 14%. That's 1 in 7. One of the danger men here, of course, Max Sheandry, who won the Tour de France stage a few years ago. And now the peloton reaching that penultimate climb, still within a minute of the leaders. The 39-year-old Schmil can be seen just a few places back there in the red and black Lotto strip, just behind Domo's Italian rider Enrico Cassani here, whose only professional victory so far was a stage in the Tour of Italy a couple of years ago. One more climb then to go, the short cobbled ascent of the Molenberg. The peloton learns that the time gap has gone up to 1 minute and 41 seconds. Now that's getting somewhere near danger point for the peloton, as we see at the back Nico Matin rejoining after his crash on a long chase, bringing Fasabotolo's Roberto Petito up with him. Up front, Mappe's Dario Cioni in the break has a word with his team director, former ace sprinter Eric van der Aarden. Does he continue to work with teammate Bedroghi and the rest, or do they sit in and let the others make the pace? It's an intriguing situation with 65 kilometres still to go. Well, now they turn on to that final climb as the road continues back northwards towards the finish. With 64 kilometres remaining, the lead, even at more than a minute and a half, is still tenuous. And I'm sure Van der Aarden, with all his experience of these things, knows that this lead group can still be easily reeled in. And, of course, he's got powerful cards to play in that eventuality, with Bettini and Steels backed by powerhouses such as David Bramati and Stefano Zanini. This, of course, the lead group on the back here. Mappe's Cioni. Well, Cioni, of course, not a name that we hear too much about in pro cycling. He's only been a pro for a year or two and clearly struggling to hang on with the leaders here up the worst of this cobble climb. This really is the sort of race that sorts the men from the boys, and you can see Cioni just beginning to tail off a little bit from the rest of the leaders. Well, this is the first half of the bunch on the Molenberg, making that same right-hand turn. The time gap still about the same as Domos Seves Canavan, opportunist winner of Paris-Roubaix last year, stretches things out. Now, Domo don't have a rider in the break, and so they've got every reason to see that the leaders are pegged back. That would certainly suit his teammate Johan Museu, the 36-year-old winner of more than 100 professional races. Paolo Bettini, a shot of the little Mappe Classics winner there, seen on the front. Beyond the Molenberg now, and at last that time gap is beginning to come down just a little as the Domo riders and several of the Italian teams, apart from Sciandri's Lampre squad, begin to move up a gear. Lampre, of course, they've no need to do any work at the moment with Sciandri up in that lead group. But now real drama with 59 kilometres to go in the village of Weilegem. With the lead down to just under a minute, the leaders are stopped by a level crossing. Well, there shouldn't be any need to panic here. The rules clearly state that the race can be restarted with the previous time gap reinstated. It's a common occurrence in bike races, particularly on the flatter lands, the last well-known occasion being just last year in the Tour de France, when the two leaders at the time actually used their stoppage to sign autographs and have pictures taken before the serious business got underway again. Well, there you see the lead group being set off again, the stopwatch obviously on, and the race, the main field, will not be allowed to go until that previous time gap, which was just under a minute, has elapsed. Well, here we see the race underway again, but the bunch was actually restarted after only 47 seconds. I think that's something less than most observers felt was the true time gap, but it's really had the result of galvanising the peloton into action over still more stretches of the renowned Belgian cobbles. Now, this is a big attack here. We've got twice winner Peter van Petegem, the Lotto teammate André Schmil, plus their Domo rival Johan Museu, and there's another Belgian rider from the French Cofidis outfit there, Joe Plankett, as well as the experienced Dane Rolf Sørensen. They're all up there on the attack. Sørensen, of course, now in the colours of yet another Belgian outfit, Langbouw Credit. Surely now the leaders can't hold out much longer with these guys chasing after them. 54 kilometres to go, and the chase is succeeding. There's Schmil just going through the picture. Aussie Robin McEwen, Team Coast Frank Hoge, and another Mappe man, Kevin Hulsman, are amongst them. Getting in on the action, the lot of them, as the break is finally being reeled in. And that break's been away for about 40-odd kilometres. Now, we've got an elite group of riders up front, from which the winner might well come. And we see the leaders here. It's just 28 seconds for the leaders. Well, not decisive yet. 30 kilometres, 33 kilometres to go to the finish. The new lead group, well, not too far ahead from what's left of the peloton. The Lotto men, though, in full cry up front. Look at those four jerseys on our caption. Schmil, Van Petegem, McEwen, and the earlier breakaway man Dollander. They've all got the whip hand, whilst their Belgian rivals Domo have somehow contrived to miss out on the move altogether. Dollander's powerful turns at the front have seen off the likes of Sciandri, Sørensen and several others now, and the lead group has been reduced to just 11 riders. 19 kilometres only to go now, and Team Coast's Frank Hoge up front there, sensing the awesome Lotto presence, has decided not to wait. You can just see him on the right-hand side of the road. The 1998 Danish road race champion knows that the likes of McEwen would eat him alive in a sprint finish, and away he goes. There's Frank Hoge going on the attack, all on his own up the road. This is a very brave move. We've seen him do this in the past, and he's won races by doing this, but can he hold off the strength of the Lotto riders behind him? Amazingly, the counterattack's coming from Dollander, who most would have thought that he'd already done enough in the earlier break. The 27-year-old Belgian's got a handful of victories to his name since turning pro in 1996, and he recently added to that with an early season stage win in the French Étoile de Bessèges event. Well, this effort to pull back Hoge is very typical of Dollander. Up we go to the Dane now. He's been in the pro rank since 1994. He's 29 years of age now. The German outfit Team Coast, incidentally, is his 6th different team in 9 seasons as a pro. The question now is, can he hang on against the might of the Lotto team behind him? And there you see the red and black of that Lotto challenge. Plus, of course, don't forget Robbie McEwen, who's wearing his national champions jersey. This Lotto team, well funded. The Belgian National Lottery pumps around £3 million or almost $5 million into the squad. But it's certainly getting good value for money here as Frank Hoge, we're back with him again, tries to hang on to this precarious 12-second lead. That's all it is at this stage. But 16 kilometres to go, or 10 miles remaining, and Schmil now powering away at the head of the chase group as Hoge continues his bid for what would be the best win of his professional career. But the odds are surely stacked against him with so many big guns breathing down his neck, and Schmil full of fight, 39 years of age, and stretching out the rest of this chase group. Still Schmil in control, knowing he's got more riders from his team in support, all chasing after this man, Frank Hoge, who really is doing a tremendous ride here. Look at the pools of water. It's a lovely sunny day, but obviously there's been some very heavy rain recently here in this area of Belgium, and riders having to pick their way over the cobbles just a little bit. And now at the front, in the distance there, ahead of this chase group, Van Petegem taking up the cudgels. It's been on just such a cobbled section as this where the 32-year-old Belgian's launched himself to his 2 previous victories in this event. Now, this could change the Lotto strategy completely, because if Van Petegem does get up to Hoge, then they just might abandon plans to get McEwen first over the line. He's the in-form man after all, and they might decide to leave it to Van Petegem, who should, you would imagine, be able to get the better of Hoge if it comes to a 2-man sprint. And that would make Van Petegem only the 3rd rider ever to win this Het Volk semi-classic 3 times. Ernest Stex managed it in 1952, 53 and 56, as we're back with Hoge once again. And Joseph Bruyère did it in 1974, 75 and 80. And, well, it goes without saying that both those riders were Belgians. And look at this. This is incredible stuff from Peter Van Petegem. He really is making light work of this. He's closing this gap, which was at the start around about 30-odd seconds, and he's going to close it, it looks like, in only about 3 kilometres. This man is full of fight and determined to show that his renaissance in the new colours of Team Lotto is doing him the world of good. There's the leader, and there's the shadow of the chaser, and that shadow belongs to this man, Peter Van Petegem, the Belgian, as he closes the gap now on the Dane as they get to the closing stages of this race. A tremendous chase by Van Petegem. What a brilliant performance.
2-time winner Peter Van Petegem has the hat trick in sight, but he must outfox Frank Hoge and a charging peloton to take the win. 10K to go.
Van Petegem is really flying, and Hoge must think, oh my goodness, of all the riders I've got to contend with now, it's that man. He's got a better sprint than I have. What am I going to do? Well, the caption there at the top says 7 seconds, but I think it's really a bit more than that. It's probably more like 17, 18, 19 seconds now for the 2 leaders over what's left of that chase group. Still not decisive, but Lotto endeavouring to keep control as they have done through most of the second half of this race, and they're doing a brilliant job of it. 5 to go now, and the Lotto plan's working. The gap's gone up to 30 seconds, and surely now these 2 are going to make it, but can the Dane, Frank Hoge, spoil the Belgian party? The 9 chasers again, the non-Lotto riders in there, 6 of them, include Chris Pearce and Joe Plankett from the French Crédit Agricole squad, but they all seem at this stage to have accepted their fate, playing into the hands of the Lotto team all the way. Hoge and Van Petegem now on the outskirts of Lokeren. 3 kilometres to go. The gap's still about the same, but I don't think there's any doubt now that these 2 are going to stay clear, barring accidents. Behind them, Lotto endeavouring surely to put McEwen on the podium following his overall victory in the Étoile de Bessèges, where he also recorded a stage victory, adding to his 4 stage wins in Australia's Tour Down Under and his own national championship back in January. 2 kilometres to go, and Hoge's now got to be asking himself, how am I going to beat Van Petegem in a two-man sprint? Most of Hoge's 14 or 15 pro wins have come with opportunist lone breaks, as indeed this one could well have been had it not been for Van Petegem's alertness in chasing him down some way back down the road. Well, these two now are probably going to indulge in a little bit of cat and mouse. I don't think that the chasers are going to get to them. Here we see the chasers as all the riders approach the 1 kilometre to go sign. In fact, there's the banner. You can just see it in the distance over the road. The red kite on the top telling the riders what they all know in the professional bike game. That is the start of the last kilometre. A quick look back from Hoge. I'm sure he's saying to himself, well, at least I'm going to get second place, but can I beat this Belgian in front of his own crowd? Well, last of the 200 kilometres in the race, and behind them, Michel van Hecker of the Landbouw Credit Team has attacked off the front of the chase group. He's launched himself clear. I don't think he'll catch the two leaders, but it might mean yet another Belgian on the podium. It won't be a lotto man if that's the way it stays, but at least it will be a Belgian. But now Hoge into the closing stage. He decides to take the bull by the horns. He's got to try something. All he can do is go flat out. He's got to take it from the front, but Van Petegem alert to it as they come into the last few hundred metres, and Van Petegem now launching himself round Hoge, and Hoge surely hasn't got the speed to beat off Van Petegem, and Van Petegem clearly coming home, the Belgian winning in front of his own crowd, dedicating that to the new child that his wife presented with him with just recently. A nice one for the Belgian, and they're going to get 1 and 3, the Belgians, because Michel van Hecker has managed to hang on just ahead of McEwen and Bettini for that third place on the podium.
So Peter Van Petegem takes his third Het Volk title, joining Ernie Sturks and Joseph Briere as the only 3-time winners of this event. Looking at the final results, there's Van Petegem ahead of Frank Hoge. Michael Van Hack led the second group across, which included 2 of Van Petegem's teammates, Robbie McEwen and Andre Schmiel, in what is to be his last season on the circuit. What a ride for Lotto. They certainly held all the cards. Be sure to stay with us tonight as we continue in Belgium with 3 days de Pan, followed by the Criterium International, Lance Armstrong's only race in France prior to the Tour. For a complete schedule of all our cycling action, log on to our website, olntv.com. You've been watching an exclusive presentation of OLN Adventure TV.